And welcome to another episode of the OBX Wave Report. This one for December the 10th, 2022, Saturday morning. And yes, I know this one is coming out right on the wire. I said wave reports will be issued between 8 and 10 a.m. every morning. And I am here just barely at 10 a.m. due to the fact that I had a raging, awesome, fantastic Dungeons and Dragons game last night. So yes, surfing and D&D, we do indeed cross the streams here sometimes at the OBX Wave Report. But for today, we are again tracking a beastly Atlantic bomb storm system that is pumping out uh, massive waves and hurling up to 12-foot surf for the east-facing beaches of the Outer Banks. And this thing is, oh, let's see, 500, 1,000. This storm is 1,500 miles away, and it is having an impact all up and down the U.S. East Coast and across the North Atlantic by just pushing out some massive waves. And you can tell but why? Because the cloud features for this storm and the wind features for this storm stretch out over hundreds and hundreds of miles. I mean, this swath here is probably about 700 miles across by itself. So the northern swath of this storm, the northern shield, if you will, of this storm system is enormous. And if you were to transpose it onto the US East Coast, it would cover much of it, if not all of it. The other feature that is adding to wave conditions is this trough that has stalled over the Atlantic Ocean near the East Coast, which is also kicking up some winds and helping to amplify the long-term wind fetch that is holding those swells up as they get to the coastline. So that's what we're looking at right now. So once again, welcome to the OBX Wave Report, where we track all things waves, weather, climate, and beach lifestyle. And today, hopefully, we'll get another beach lifestyle segment up for you guys as actually it's more kind of a nature segment. Planning to head on down south to P Island for some nature observations, and we'll see if we can get you a brief segment there. And we might get a lifestyle segment later, depending on whether or not I have the time to do it. But for right now, we are going to focus on the main feature, which is the waves. And so let's see. I'm gonna use a little map here, a little satellite map, and we'll go ahead and go back up to the coast to Jeanette's Pier, which is our usual starting point. It is such a beautiful location. We've had now numerous live observations from Jeanette's Pier in our video library out on YouTube. And we've gotten both some amazing footage of wave conditions out there, both for the recent big wave event for the OBX, and also had some great footage of surfers surfing off Jeanette's Pier. And we will get more and more um, footage for you guys as we continue. But for today, the waves at Jeanette's Pier are 5 to 8 feet, so very similar to yesterday's conditions. Winds are coming down, and the swell is becoming more consistent. So the primary swell is now what's dominating, and that's at a period of 12 seconds. So not as brutal conditions as they were yesterday, is what it sounds like to me, with north-northeast wind coming in at 15 miles per hour rather than in the range of 20 to 25 miles per hour. And so this is a moderate onshore flow given the northeast cant of the coastline here. The air temperature is 53 degrees Fahrenheit, so pretty brisk out there. Make sure you've got your cold weather protection. And the water temperature is 60 degrees Fahrenheit, also likely requiring, unless you're some kind of polar bear, some cold weather protection as well. So make sure you got your wetsuits, and if you're really sensitive, your booties and your hoodies going on there. The weather for today is predicted to be breezy, some scuts of cloud flying across here right now. In Manio, which is not far from Jeanette's Pier at all, we've got like I would say mostly cloudy conditions, and the high temperature for today at Jeanette's Pier is predicted to be 55 degrees Fahrenheit. So moving on south to Pea Island and Esterns. Presently, the wave conditions there are also 5 to 8 feet, with a primary swell also at 12 seconds. So essentially, I wouldn't say identical wave conditions because the features on the ocean bottom are a little bit different at Esterns. So the waves will probably form up a bit differently. But the from wave heights to swell, very similar conditions there at Esterns, with 5 to 8 foot waves and a 12 second period for the primary swell. No indicator for a secondary swell at this point. Winds are out of the north-northeast at 18 miles per hour, so a little bit more brisk, but not as brisk as yesterday. And again, this is an onshore flow with a slight cross-shore component over there at Esterns. The air temperature is 56 degrees Fahrenheit, and the ocean water temperature is 62 degrees Fahrenheit. So also make sure you've got your cold weather protection if you're out there today braving those big waves. The weather conditions are breezy, cloudy, with that associated Atlantic trough and a predicted high temperature at Esterns for today of 58 degrees Fahrenheit. So I thought before I get to the main event for big waves here at the Outer Banks today, I'm going to give you a supplemental location. We typically only do three, but since the wave conditions are so interesting here today at the Outer Banks, we're going to go on south past the point at Hatteras Island and Hatteras Light. And we are going to go down to Frisco, which is a south-facing beach. And for today, Frisco is it's still windy down there, but it's a much milder overall conditions. It's warmer, the waves are smaller. I just wanted to show you a more sheltered beach. So right now at Frisco, the waves are between 2 and 3.5 feet. So still getting some relatively decent sized waves, but nothing like what's hitting the northeast facing beaches and the east facing beaches on the other side of the turn of the Outer Banks strand. So waves coming in at 2 to 3.5 feet there at Frisco. Primary swell is 13 seconds with a secondary swell at 8 seconds. Winds coming in out of the north-northeast, and this is offshore for this south-facing beach. So you got the winds coming in. Let's see. Right, I'm sorry, I was a little bit further west. So winds coming in at the north-northeast. So this is, kind of in this direction here, cutting across the beach and blowing offshore. So likely creating some more hollow waves for you guys down there at Frisco. The air temperature is 55 degrees Fahrenheit, and the ocean water temperature is a comparatively balmy 59 degrees, but don't let that adjective fool you. Oh, I'm sorry, 69 degrees. Let me say again, I got that wrong. It's comparatively balmy 69 degrees, but overall conditions are pretty cool. So you're likely to still need your cold weather protection there, even down there at Frisco with those water temperatures approaching 70 degrees. The weather is also breezy, likely a bit cloudy down there at Frisco with a predicted high temperature of 57 degrees Fahrenheit. So one sheltered beach for you guys before I go to the main event here, the main wave event for the Outer Banks, which is going to be Buxton. And right now, Buxton is just pretty nuts with wave heights at 10 to 12 feet. So if there's a swell out there in the Atlantic Ocean, there's a high likelihood that it's going to hit some point along the Outer Banks. And in this case today, that point is Buxton because wow, 10 to 12 foot breaking waves offshore at Buxton, not Buston. So if you are crazy and you want to surf some pretty brutal big waves for the East Coast here, Buxton apparently is the place to go. I'm not going to recommend it because I shouldn't recommend surfing in dangerous conditions. So you be the judge of your abilities and have at. In any case, the swell at Buxton is also 12 seconds with apparently the primary swell dominating because I'm getting no readings for a secondary swell from the official reporting locations. Winds are out of the north-northeast, which is cross shore with a slight onshore component at 18 miles per hour. The air temperature down there at Buxton is 55 degrees Fahrenheit, so also pretty brisk. And the ocean water temperature is 66 degrees Fahrenheit. So with that combination of air and water, you're going to want to have your cold weather protection, your wetsuits, and available for you. The weather conditions are also breezy, blown clouds, and a predicted high at Buxton of 58 degrees Fahrenheit. And wow, that's our main location today for winter big surf conditions here in the Outer Banks. All due to this powerful storm in the central North Atlantic, central North Atlantic, which has bombed out as predicted. So yesterday at this time, I believe we were looking at about a 970 millibar low, and it has since rapidly intensified to a 952 millibar system. It is, as you can see, very large, and it's also linking in, forming a kind of a chain, little daisy chain here between a less powerful low, but which, if it were closer to the eastern U.S., would be a nor'easter in and of itself at a 991. So these two systems are out here creating gale force winds across the Atlantic Ocean and really, really churning up the surf. I'm going to go ahead and run this model so you can see where the storm system is predicted to go over the next day or two. As you can see, it does weaken a bit as it moves to the north and basically sucks in the other associated system from today, combining into one big mess right there across the North Atlantic. The satellite map's bound to be crazy for tomorrow. In any case, and then it continues to the east toward Europe, likely hurling some surf there toward that crazy break over there at Nazar. I don't know how high the waves will tend to be by that time. We'll look at some wave models in a minute. And then another low does form just northeast of Bermuda here and gets relatively intense. So for the East Coast, it looks like wave conditions will persist for quite some time. I was looking at the wave models and just, high surf conditions are likely to continue along the Outer Banks for at least the next week, which is pretty wild. So our main storm system here has weakened considerably in by Wednesday in the predicted models, but is likely hurling some big surf down there at the European beaches. So looks like a European event on the way. As another storm system is affecting the US East Coast by Wednesday, and yet another storm system is developing here in the central US that could play some major roles for the Outer Banks and the US East Coast over, I'd say, by Friday, it looks like. So let's just go ahead and run the model a little bit and take a look. Yeah, actually, yeah, it looks like transferring some energy right off the Outer Banks by Friday to form a coastal low. Doesn't look very powerful at this point in the model, about 1,007 millibars, but definitely some stormy conditions for the Outer Banks by Friday of next week. So that's looking at the march of storms across the North Atlantic, which can be very stormy at this time of year. And I am going to turn now to the wave models. And whoa, holy cow, boy, do we have some big waves right now in the central Atlantic Ocean, central North Atlantic. So right now, the significant wave height associated with this powerful storm system, 952 millibar system, is nearly 45 feet. And this was predicted earlier. This storm system was predicted in the models, has been predicted in the models for about a week now. And models have been spot on, both the wave models and the atmospheric models. So big kudos to the models for nailing this one. This is, you know, major storm system, very well predicted for the North Atlantic here. And 45-foot significant wave heights means that sometimes, every now and again, you might get a wave up to double that. So you do the math. That is crazy. Of course, this is it right here where the little green dot is, right out in the middle of the North Atlantic. These waves are not breaking presently on any shores. Um, but again, you can also see the effect of the entrained low also producing some large waves in the range of 23-foot significant wave heights closer to the East Coast. And these two systems have chained together to create a lot of wind across the North Atlantic. And I'm going to go ahead, I wasn't planning to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and switch to the wind model to give you guys an idea of the flow for this system and the fetch. With a larger system, with an extremely powerful system, let's go ahead and turn this to miles per hour so we can get our data for the Americans. So right offshore off the US East Coast, we've got gale force conditions, say looks like about 400 miles or so, maybe about 250 miles off the East Coast in the entrained low here to the west of our main low. And then right close to the low, we've got 56 mile per hour winds. Of course, this will be with stronger gusts. So these are average wind speeds. And let's see, what is it? Average wind speeds here. And if you look at the fetch, I mean, these winds are about, starting at around 30 miles per hour, 37 miles per hour, so nearly gale force entering the storm, running across the storm, intensifying to nearly 60 miles per hour with probably hurricane force gusts in some areas. Then spreading out to near gale force in the in between zone between these two systems, so 30 to say 35 mile per hour winds, and then intensifying as we get into the second storm system here to near gale force or gale force as well. And this over a swath of ocean that's maybe about 1,500 miles across or more, maybe 2,000 miles across here. So massive fetch generated, which is contributing to the waves in this region. So, and as you can see, we have up to 12-foot waves here on the Outer Banks, with the average significant wave heights just offshore between 7 and 9 feet. And then all the east-facing beaches are getting some pounding here with 6 to 7-foot waves just off the Bahamas, some 6 to 7-foot waves just off the Florida coast, and then moving on into the Caribbean chain, we've got some 8-foot wave, significant wave heights, possibly as high as 9 feet in some locations. So hurling large waves at the U.S. East Coast well across a significant body of water. And I'm now very interested in Nizar. So I'm going to go ahead and advance the wave model and see how these waves propagate. So again, as the storm weakens, you do expect the significant wave heights to fall a bit. But here we go. So significant wave heights just off Portugal, 2 days in the model at around 16 feet. So looks like some more big wave conditions heading for Nazar and the Portugal beaches. Um, and so we will see. We'll see what happens as the days progress there in Europe, as there has been much interest in the surfer community for these crazy massive waves in this kind of epic location. It seems almost mythical to me. I know it's become like a big spot, but it's just, I mean, the extremity of the conditions there are just radical. So in any case, thank you for joining me for the OBX Wave Report. Please help support us as we pursue our mission to inform all you surfers to have fun ourselves in the wonderful natural environment, and our interaction as surfers with the natural world does increase our appreciation of nature, of its power, and of our effects as human beings on the Earth system. So, as a closing statement, I'm just going to ask you all once again to please try to do everything you can to help save our beautiful and precious coastlines from the effects of climate change, driven primarily by fossil fuel burning. I know that we can do it. I know we can. In the core of my being, it is something we can do. We just have, enough of us just have to get on board and decide to do it together. And I believe in you guys, but I'm here for you, and I will be reporting on throughout all of it. So thank you once again, and I look forward to